I always knew the knives would come eventually. I just didn't expect the first one to land between my shoulder blades in a glass conference room under fluorescent lights. He didn't even flinch. My boss, Darren. Mid-meeting. Mid-sentence. I was presenting Q3 metrics. Slide 14. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, and said, "That'll be all, Ava. We're going in a new direction." Everyone froze. Marketing VP glanced at HR. HR avoided eye contact altogether. No notice. I asked, my tone glassy. Darren smiled like he was doing me a favor. "We'll take it from here." My heart dropped. Not because I didn't see it coming, but because I knew what he didn't. So I stood, adjusted my blazer, zipped my laptop into my leather case, slowly, and I said, "Good luck at tomorrow's executive review." He blinked. "What review?" I smiled, head tilted just enough to deliver the kill. "Exactly." Then I walked out. No scene, no sobbing, just the quiet thud of dignity echoing against glass walls. You want to know who I am? My name is Ava Whitlock. And if you think this ends with a clean severance and an HR memo, you've never met a woman who built the numbers behind the empire. Because what happens when the boss underestimates the one person who knows every login, every investor, every flaw in the foundation? What happens when the woman he fired wrote the very report they're reading in the morning? That night, I didn't cry. I ironed a fresh suit, resynced my old presentation to the cloud, and at 5:32 a.m., I ordered a cappuccino and walked into the lobby, not as an employee, but as the only person in the building who knew just how many bombs were about to detonate at 9 sharp. Let's just say, by the time they realized what I'd done, the boardroom smelled like fear. The executive board arrived at 8:56 a.m. Sharp suits, sharper eyes. None of them made small talk. Darren walked in last, still smug, still clueless. He nodded at the board chair, then paused, because seated at the far end, across from him, was me, Ava, in navy, hands folded, badge clipped not as employee, but consultant. "What is this?" he stammered. The chair spoke before I could. "Ava will be walking us through your department's Q3 performance, Darren. She submitted a pre-review packet 2 weeks ago. You approved it." He looked at me like he'd just swallowed a glass shard. "You lied." I tilted my head. "You signed." See, 2 weeks before the layoff, I noticed something off. Fudged client data, anomalous bonuses, redirected ad budgets that didn't match ROI. I flagged it quietly. No one cared. So I built a report. Clean. Precise. Attached a risk projection matrix and sent it directly to the chair. Didn't need a signature. Just evidence. But I also added something else. A full audit proposal. With one condition I presented. The chair agreed. And now here we were. Darren tried to interrupt. "None of this is necessary. It's a waste of..." "Sit down," the CFO cut in. Cold. Controlled. I clicked the remote. Slide 1. Unaccounted expenses, $280,000, Q3 anomalies. I didn't blink. Slide 2. Slide 3. I walked them through everything. Vendor conflicts. Duplicate invoice trails. Bonuses tied to ghost campaigns Darren signed off on. Each line a thread. Each thread pulling at a very expensive suit. By the time I hit slide 17, the room was dead silent. "And Darren?" Sweating through his collar. The chair leaned back. "This isn't a performance review. This is a containment breach." I closed the laptop. And for the first time in months, I breathed. See, this wasn't revenge. This was correction. Because when men like Darren think women like me are disposable, they forget who holds the receipts. The meeting ended with 2 words. Internal investigation. Darren stood frozen, his mouth trying to catch up to his brain. I didn't gloat, didn't smirk, just gathered my things while the CFO said, "We'll need your access revoked by noon, Darren. HR will escort you." Poetic, wasn't it? The same man who fired me mid-slide now couldn't even open his own email. He tried a last-ditch effort. This is personal. She manipulated the numbers. I turned.
Calm.
If I manipulated anything, the board wouldn't have asked me to stay on for the full audit. That shut him up. Because yes, they asked me to stay. Not as a full-time hire. Not as an employee. But as a paid consultant reporting directly to corporate.
$6,000 a week.
No team. No boss. No Darren. By noon, he was gone. Walked out with a cardboard box and a face like a kicked dog. I watched from the mezzanine. Not for revenge. For memory. So the next time someone like him tries to play God with a woman's career, I'll remember the sound of his dress shoes echoing on polished tile. That night, I got a message. From Marcy, our former intern. Saw what you did.
Just wanted to say thank you.
He made my life hell last summer. Then another. From a woman in PR. Finally. He called me sweetheart in a pitch meeting once and told me to wear skirts more often. The stories kept coming. A slow leak of quiet trauma. All connected by one thread.
Darren.
He wasn't just bad at his job. He was bad, period. And for years, he got away with it. Because women like us thought staying silent was professional.
But now?
He was gone. And the silence was broken. That weekend, I sat at my desk. Opened a new document. Typed the first sentence. This is not a story about revenge. This is a story about removal. By Monday morning, my inbox was full. Requests from departments I'd never worked with. A marketing lead wanted help auditing a failed campaign. Legal asked if I had flagged anything involving vendor contracts. Even the chair looped me into a call with international. We'd like your eyes on other branches too. Darren wasn't the only variable. I nodded. Quietly.
Calmly.
But inside, I was steel. Because I wasn't just the woman who got fired. I was the woman who flipped the entire floor plan upside down, without raising my voice once. Darren, meanwhile, he was unraveling. How do I know? Because by Wednesday, he sent me an email. From a Gmail address. Subject line. Just a conversation. I almost deleted it. But curiosity wins when the guilty get nervous. So I clicked.
Ava.
Look, I know things got tense. I didn't mean for it to go that far. Maybe we could talk, clear the air. No lawyers. Just two colleagues. Two colleagues? He fired me mid-sentence. No warning. No explanation. Tried to erase me with a smirk.
I didn't reply.
Instead, I forwarded it to HR with one line. Contact attempt logged. For your awareness. Let him feel what it's like. When doors close and people stop answering, let him sit in the silence. He once used his power. Later that day, a junior analyst knocked on my door. Nervous. Sweating. I'm sorry to bother you. I wanted to say your audit saved my job. Darren was pushing me to backdate numbers. I looked him in the eye. You don't owe me thanks. You owe yourself truth. Because that's what this all came down to. Not revenge. Not payback. Correction. For every woman talked over. For every assistant whose ideas were stolen. For every analyst told to keep her head down and her voice soft. This wasn't about Darren anymore. This was about us. The headline dropped Friday morning. Anonymous whistleblower sparks internal shakeup at Hawthorne and West. I didn't leak it. Didn't have to. The walls were thin. And boardrooms have ears, especially when a $14 million discrepancy is on the table. The article didn't name names. But it didn't have to. Insiders knew. The tone was surgical. Sources close to the audit suggest the catalyst was a terminated employee with direct access to financial oversight and compliance. One board member called it the most precise internal exposure in company history. Darren's name trended by noon. Not in a good way. Screenshots of his old LinkedIn posts resurfaced. Corporate cliches. Fake mentorship quotes. One gem. Leaders build people, not empires. Someone commented, "You built neither." He tried to clap back. Posted a thread about smear campaigns and grudge-fueled attacks. But the damage was done. The replies were brutal. You mean the same woman who saved your quarterly collapse? Tell us again how firing her worked out?
I didn't comment. Didn't retweet.
Didn't like a single post. But I did get a call. From a firm in Chicago. They'd seen the article. They were restructuring their senior leadership. Would I be interested in head of integrity and oversight? $280,000.
Equity.
Flexible base. Report directly to the board. I paused.
Took a breath.
Send the offer in writing. That night, I walked past the old office building. Lights still on.
But something felt smaller now.
Not the building.
Him.
Because for years, Darren made himself the center of every room. Louder. Taller. Like success belonged to him by default. But here's the thing. When you strip away the ego and the noise, some men are just empty suits. And the women they tried to erase? We were the architects all along. I didn't need to go back. But I did. One last time. My final day as a consultant. Technically, my badge still worked. But this time, I didn't need clearance. I walked through the lobby like I owned the marble beneath my heels. Because I did. Not with titles or shares. But with truth. The receptionist looked up, startled. Then smiled. I just wanted to say what you did. It mattered. I nodded.
Didn't speak.
Upstairs, I left a small envelope on my old desk. Not dramatic. Just deliberate. Inside, a single printed page. My original Q3 report. Unedited. Highlighted. Time-stamped. Across the bottom, I'd written in blue ink. Next time you think she's just the analyst, look closer. No signature. No goodbye. Just a watermark of who I really was beneath the title they tried to strip away. I walked past Darren's old office. The nameplate was gone. The door slightly ajar. Empty. A hollow room where once a man barked orders he barely understood. Funny thing about silence. It used to hurt. Now it was peaceful. On the elevator down, I bumped into the new CFO. He extended his hand. We're going to feel your absence. I shook it firmly. You'll feel the culture shift more. Then I walked out for the last time. No one chasing. No one interrupting. Because the girl they dismissed? She wasn't walking away. She was ascending. Later that night, I emailed my official acceptance to the Chicago firm. Attached, a photo of the envelope I left behind. Subject line. I don't need a desk to make an impact. Because real power? It doesn't come from corner offices or title cards. It comes from knowing. You lit the match that forced the whole system
to see.
Chicago was colder than I remembered. But the office? All glass. All intention. On day one, they handed me a badge, a corner office, and a full team. But what I noticed first was the silence. Not the kind that follows fear. The kind that comes from respect. People listened here. Not because they were told to, but because they'd seen what happens when the wrong voice gets ignored.
And Darren?
He was making noise, just not where he wanted. A podcast interview surfaced. Low budget. Bitter tone. He blamed corporate sabotage and internal betrayal. He even tried to spin it. I built that team. I made her career. She turned on me.
It didn't land.
Comments were brutal. Sponsors pulled out. By the end of the week, the video was flagged for misinformation. But then came the real blow. An email from our Chicago PR team. Subject. Request for comment. Wall Street Journal. Turns out a feature piece was coming. Not on Darren. On me. Headline in the draft read. From analyst to architect. The woman who redefined corporate integrity. They'd traced the timeline. Connected the dots. Even interviewed junior staff who'd quietly kept notes on Darren's behavior for months. It wasn't revenge. It was documentation. And now it was going national. The day it published, I got a message. Blocked number. Voicemail only.
Ava.
I know you think you won. But this industry is small. You'll see.
Click.
I didn't save it. Didn't report it.
Didn't need to.
Because while Darren was shouting into the void, I was building something. That week, I launched a new initiative. The Whitlock Mentorship Fund. $50,000 seed. Grants for women in business school who had been silenced, pushed out, or told to smile more. We received 312 applications in 4 days. See, men like Darren try to play legacy through noise. Women like me, we build echoes that last longer. 1 year later, I was back in New York. Not for business. For something quieter. A panel at a university. Topic: Women and Power in Corporate Spaces. I sat between 2 CEOs and a nonprofit founder. They asked us to share our defining career moment. The others spoke first, impressive, polished, practiced. Then it was my turn. I looked at the room. Mostly women. Mostly young. Eyes wide with that familiar mix of hunger and doubt. I said, my defining moment wasn't when I was promoted. It was when I was fired. In front of everyone. Without cause. Without kindness. You could hear breathing. And I smiled. Because I knew something he didn't. I wasn't done yet. After the panel, a student came up. Nervous hands. Big coat. Voice barely steady. She whispered, "Thank you for not being quiet about it." I nodded. Not a lecture.
Not a speech.
Just a touch on her shoulder, and a silent reminder that we don't rise alone. Later that night, I received a package at my hotel. No note. Just a framed copy of the Wall Street Journal article from a year ago. At the bottom, a post-it.
We're still talking about it. Keep building. M.
I knew who it was from.
Marcy.
The former intern. Now VP at a startup. Creating policy from day one. Hiring without bias. Auditing with transparency. Not because she wanted to be me, but because someone once showed her that quiet women don't have to stay small. The next morning, I walked to Bryant Park.
Sat with a coffee.
Watched the city wake up. No badge. No blazer. Just Ava. A woman once fired like she didn't matter. Now etched into systems she quietly rewired. And as the sun cut through the skyline, I whispered to no one in particular. It wasn't about revenge. It was about making sure no woman has to be brave alone again. Then I took a breath, closed my eyes, and smiled.